I can tell by the amount of people in here that everyone's having a good time because everyone's outside networking and chatting and having snacks, so it's great. Thank you. Welcome to our final plenary session of the day. Before I introduce our next speaker, I would like to thank our presenting sponsor, Invenergy. And speaking on behalf of Invenergy today is Cooper Johnson. Cooper has been expanding Wisconsin's solar capacity for the last 12 years. A Chicago transplant, Cooper started his career constructing solar panels at Helios Solar Works in Milwaukee. He previously worked with Convergence Energy, Arch Electric, and Ingeteam, maintaining their commercial and residential projects and managing utility-scale after-sales service projects. Currently, he and his colleagues at Invenergy lead the transition to a carbon-free future in the Badger State. Please welcome Cooper Johnson.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sam. All right. Thank you, Sam. Good afternoon, Renew Wisconsin. It's a privilege to be back here with you all on the 12th Annual Energy Summit. The intro said it all. My name's Cooper Johnson, and 12 years ago, I left a nascent career in Chicago politics to build solar panels up here in Milwaukee. I think a lot of us have had a circuitous path to where we are today, and I'm really proud to be here with my colleagues from Invenergy. We've got some ambitious projects that we've proposed across the state and that we are building, actually, in counties from Iowa to Kenosha, Walworth and Rock County, and much more to come. I'm really excited to join everybody here today at this really exciting moment. It's really a historic junction. We're executing on an opportunity to transform the energy landscape with what has been proposed in the past year. And over the next 10 years, we can deliver on that promise of a more sustainable Wisconsin, bringing not only cleaner air, cleaner water, and cleaner soils, but significant local investment, tax revenues, and jobs across the state. So my work takes me all over Wisconsin, and frequently what I find when I work with communities on large utility scale projects is why here? So I bring to my communities this kind of built out deck. It's got a fun little mnemonic device, Rick. So this is just the bare bones of like, what are we actually doing here? But I have a more personal investment in this. It's just probably the most fun job I've had in my career here in Wisconsin. I get an opportunity to hear stories from people and share stories and learn about the communities that I'm developing in. And I don't know, maybe you guys know this, but in addition to inventing the sausage race, Wisconsin has also had the first renewable energy project. In 1882, the Vulcan Street plant was a 12 kilowatt hydroelectric facility that came online, so rich energy tradition. Over 140 years ago. We also have rattlesnakes in Wisconsin. Did not know that and learned that fun fact. The snake's scary. We also invented the hamburger, and there's a resolution to prove it. So Wisconsin, home of the hamburger. Say it loud and proud. But anyway, jokes aside, like what I've learned is, you know, we're hearing from people about the impacts of our project in the communities where we work. Our impact here in Wisconsin started about 15 years ago. Forward Wind commenced operations in Dodge and Fond du Lac counties. And since then, we've started construction on 3 solar and solar plus storage projects, again in Iowa, Kenosha, Walworth, and Rock counties. Once operational, these projects will generate enough clean power to electrify over 185,000 typical U.S. homes and contribute nearly $8 million annually, benefiting communities through property taxes, landowner payments, wages, and benefits to our employees who are working here. Farmers partnering with us across the state are imagining something new. They're sharing with me visions for their farms, their futures, their families. They've shared with us plans of diversifying their operations, investing in land and new equipment, and reevaluating legacy plans with a prosperous new prospect. Wisconsin wind, solar, and storage projects can build a stronger, safer, healthier community. Invenergy has been delivering on this promise in communities across America for over 2 decades, but it will take strong relationships with Wisconsinites in collaboration with a diverse group of professionals here today to achieve all of our ambitions. Invenergy helps communities where we live, work, and operate prosper through sustained investment and national, state, and community level partnerships that amplify the impact of our projects even further. At each of the more than 180 projects we've developed since our founding in 2001, we designate funding to support local organizations and nonprofits like first responders, local 4-H and FFA chapters, and food pantries. In 2021, we delivered $278 million in total economic investment and $1.7 million in cause-based contributions across our growing portfolio. Renew Wisconsin and the many talented, hardworking industry and civil leaders here with us today are central to building a coalition capable of executing on a bold, shared vision in the coming decade. So in closing, I want to say thank you to Renew. I want to say thank you to Sam and everybody here who put on this amazing summit. For 30 years of opportunities to connect and grow a community working together to build a more sustainable Wisconsin. And now back to Sam and our keynote addresses. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cooper. I didn't know there were so many fun facts about Wisconsin. As a Minnesota native, I feel very inadequate right now. Our next speaker is Jennifer Bumgarner. Jennifer is the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary at the U.S. Department of Energy, Office of Congressional and Intergovernmental Affairs. She was most recently the Senior Regional Director for the Southeast with Energy Foundation, where she led a team working to advance equitable climate and clean energy solutions across a 14-state region. Prior to her tenure at Energy Foundation, Jennifer was Assistant Secretary for Energy with the North Carolina Department of Commerce, where she administered more than $275 million in federal funding under the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, and led efforts to clean energy into a state economic development strategy. She also served as a policy advisor to Governor Michael F. Easley as a policy advisor and deputy director to Governor Beverly Eaves Perdue. Jennifer is from California, so extra kudos to you for coming to Wisconsin in January. And holds a BA in politics from Wake Forest University and a Master of Science in Social Policy from the University of Oxford, where she studied as a Rhodes Scholar. Please give a warm welcome to Jennifer Bumgarner.
Well, thanks so much, Sam, for that introduction. As you all can hear, I am not from Wisconsin, but I am now armed with lots of facts, so I feel good about the situation. Oops. May have a slide problem. Okay. Let me just start by saying that it's an honor to be here today. We very much appreciate the invitation to come and talk with you about the partnerships that DOE is looking to build with folks like you deploying clean energy in states across the country. And while our Secretary, Jennifer Granholm, sends her regrets, we are nonetheless very, very excited to be able to participate on her behalf. As many of you know, it's been a monumental couple of years at DOE, and we have seen a lot of changes. We are still seeing a lot of changes looking ahead. But we also recognize that many of those changes, including movement on federal climate policy, have come about because of the hard work that you all have continued to do in states and local communities for a very, very long time. When we had little to no federal leadership on climate and clean energy, you all kept that fight up and moved things ahead. And so I would be remiss today if I didn't take a moment to just recognize how grateful we are for the climate leadership that we see in local communities around Wisconsin and certainly from the state. That includes under the leadership of Governor Evers, the state's first ever clean energy plan, which includes a goal of net zero emissions by 2050 and a solid commitment to implementing an equity-centered approach to the clean energy transition. As many of you, I'm sure, also heard in the State of the State address this week, Governor Evers also committed the state to 40,000 new clean energy jobs by 2030. So it's a really exciting moment. And beyond that, I just want to note that there is a really long and rich history of DOE and Wisconsin working together, including on projects like the Inclusive Solar Community Offering Program, which I believe was a partnership between the state, NASIO, and DOE's Solar Energy Technology Office. So there's a lot to draw on here. So with all that said, you all have obviously been doing this work for a while, and there is obviously an incredible opportunity ahead. And I just want to take a few moments today both to give you some context for things that are happening in the Department of Energy, to talk about some of the funding opportunities that we think may be of interest, and then finally to close out talking a little bit about the ways we're thinking about equity across this work and to share a little bit of insight, particularly for those of you who see yourselves as prospective applicants for DOE funding, in terms of how that can actually play into how you think about your applications. So with that, I'll just say the background to what we're doing at DOE is really the administration's commitment to climate and clean energy goals. And that includes decarbonizing the power grid by 2035 and moving to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. At DOE, there are more than 80 programs across the agency that support these objectives. We also know that we have to work with partners across the country in states and local communities to really make sure that the implementation of this work has the full effect that we need it to have to reach these goals. A big part of that for us at DOE has been really shifting the way we think about ourselves as an agency. So many of you probably come to DOE with much the same perception that I did before I started there, which is really of DOE as a research and development based agency, right? Most people, if you don't know anything else about DOE, you probably know something about the phenomenal network of national labs that are really one of the core, core offerings that the department has. We are increasingly adding to that research, development, and deployment focus. And so while we are not stepping back from any of that core scientific work, from the research and all the things that have really made this department a phenomenal powerhouse in many ways, but we are adding to that a new focus on deployment and a really thoughtful approach to what it means to really maximize the impact that clean energy can have across the country. And so as part of that, we'll talk a little bit more about funding opportunities under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law as well as the Inflation Reduction Act. But I will also just flag, and we can certainly talk more about this in the Q&A, that the department has undergone a pretty radical transformation in terms of our structure so that we now have a full secretariat devoted to deployment of clean energy and clean energy infrastructure, which we did not have a year ago. And we also have a number of expanded outreach tools in the department. One part of that is actually sitting within our intergovernmental affairs team, where we have a team of regional specialists who are working with states all over the country to help think about ways DOE can support their clean energy goals. And to that point, I just want to emphasize that we are increasingly thinking about how to reach a broader and more diverse group of stakeholders than we have, I think, ever had to reach before. And so that ranges from communities to states to tribes to utilities to manufacturers, across the gamut. And so really a huge part of what we're doing at DOE is thinking about what it takes to reach these stakeholders, how we can receive that input, how we can integrate it into our work, and have the implementation work that's ahead of us be stronger for it. With that, I'll just say, in terms of how we think about things internally, there are really three pillars for us that are, I think, the big things to think about as you think about where DOE is heading, right? The first, which you can think of as kind of the backbone, we've got a nice little analogy here, that's the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. That's the largest long-term investment in infrastructure in the nation's history. And it is really the thing that undergirds so much of what we're doing. The second, which we think of as kind of the brain part of this analogy, is the CHIPS and Science Act. This may be something that not many of you are following closely, although I'm sure there are some in the room who are. But this is really talking about how we invest in cutting-edge science in the U.S. to really boost American competitiveness and also bring jobs and supply chain back here. So if you have read anything about CHIPS chips and science, it is highly likely that it's around semiconductors in the chip industry. And then finally, the piece of this analogy that we think about as the lungs is really the Inflation Reduction Act. And this is the piece that is really designed to reach people directly in communities where they are and really kind of breathe that life back into our clean energy economy and to really incentivize employment and grow manufacturing jobs and ultimately lower costs and bring real benefits to American families. So these three pieces together are the three things that we are focused on across the department every single day. I'm going to move us quickly because I know we want to have some time for questions, but I'll just say, behind all of this is really the climate goals that this administration has set. And we think that taken together, Bill and IRA will get us by 2030 down 40% from 2005 levels. So this is a really, really significant part of what it takes to meet those commitments. We've talked a little bit about these three kind of pieces, CHIPS, Bill, and IRA, but I just want to take a minute to dig a little deeper on the Bill and IRA pieces. Bipartisan infrastructure law, as many of you probably know, was $62 billion to DOE. That's across 72 programs. The expectation is that it will create 500,000 manufacturing jobs by the end of the president's first term. And it also creates significant new authority within DOE, including our Loans Programs Office, to really move money in flexible and creative ways. The Inflation Reduction Act, kind of the other side of this equation, is $35 billion across 21 programs. It is one of the largest investments in clean energy investments in history. It has a strong focus on domestic job creation and is really expected, again, combined across these two, to reduce greenhouse gas levels to 40% below 2005 levels by 2030. So taken together, these are really a significant step forward. I'm going to shift us now to talk a little bit about some of the opportunities for funding that are coming out of Bill and IRA. And I just want to say first, from the state and community perspective, that there are three really big things that I think should be on everybody's radar, right? One of those is the state energy program. This is traditionally administered by state energy offices. Bill funding is significantly increasing this program. So in 2022, for example, just the new allocation alone under the bipartisan infrastructure law for Wisconsin will be $7.88 million. And that's a really, really significant bump. Similarly, the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant, this program I love, in part because when I was working with the State Energy Office, I got to administer it, and it was an incredible opportunity to really move resources out to local communities. This is going out to 2,700 states and local communities and tribes and territories. So it will touch places that literally may not have had opportunities to pursue their clean energy goals through any other pathway. The funding for Wisconsin for EECBG, not counting what will go to local communities, just what will come to the state, is about $2.3 million. And then finally, Weatherization Assistance Program, which is one of the most comprehensive programs in the country to address low-income energy needs, has gotten a significant bump in funding, which has been really important at a critical moment when there are a lot of needs. There's about $11 million in additional funding through Bill coming to Wisconsin for 2022, and that will continue to ramp up in the out years. So these are really, I think, some important things to think of as kind of core programs. We also, there's a lot of new opportunities for investment in built environment and buildings. This includes building codes. So the building codes implementation for efficiency and resilience program is $225 million. That is currently an open funding opportunity. We also have the Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan Fund. For those of you who may remember previous versions of this going back to the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, this is a huge opportunity, and I think one that finally has its sea legs, we hope. There's $250 million in formula funding going out to states, and that includes, I believe, a $1.88 million allocation for the state of Wisconsin. So we're very excited to see how that unfolds. We also have a really strong focus across all of these different funding opportunities in electric transportation and the infrastructure that supports it. That includes a new joint office set up between DOE and DOT to help administer these funds, including the funds that many of you know as NEVI. That is National EV Infrastructure Funding, $16+ million coming to the state of Wisconsin. So very excited about that. And we also have the home energy rebate programs, which I know many of you have been watching. This is around $9 million in home energy rebates that'll be managed through states to really support very real work in people's homes that consumers can see and touch every day. And I want to take a particular moment to just flag that right now we have an open RFI. It will be open until March, and we would love to have your comments and your feedback on how to set this program up in a way that makes it as effective as possible. So if you have a moment, that's definitely something to take a look at and give us your good feedback. Moving on, we have also from the Inflation Reduction Act, EV tax credits, which I think are a really phenomenal opportunity to continue to drive EV penetration, but also to really look at how to push it into some sectors that perhaps we haven't done as well with before, including used vehicles and the commercial space, as well as larger scale EV charging infrastructure. So we're really excited to help push this money out. And then finally, I wanted to touch briefly, knowing the state's commitment and focus to workforce development on a number of the workforce development programs that the department does have to offer. That includes building, training, and assessment centers, career skills training, and also energy auditor training. And we expect that there'll be other programs rolling out as well through other funding opportunities. Across all of this work, justice is a priority, and at the core of that is the Justice 40 initiative. Many of you have probably heard about this. It's the president's commitment through executive order that 40% of the overall benefits of certain federal investments must flow to disadvantaged communities, and we take this very seriously at DOE. We don't have time to dig into this a lot here, but we have a set of priorities that are governing how we think about those Justice 40 investments, and we've also, with the partnership of other agencies, done an incredible amount of work to try to really map the geography of these communities and understand how we can best focus resources to them. And this is the part where I get to actually tell you something that may be useful to you as applicants for DOE funding, which always makes me happy because that's the question that people usually ask us that we aren't allowed to answer. However, I can tell you that one of the ways that we are making sure to embed equity across our work is through the existence of something called community benefits plans. These plans are a scored part of applications for most competitive funding at DOE, and in most cases, they are 20% of the total score of your project. So a good community benefits plan that really touches on all these pillars can really make a difference. And so these plans are looking at things like the elements of Justice 40. They're looking at how the project embodies diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. They're looking at how it has a focus on good, sustainable jobs, and also what it does to help build relationships between the workforce and the community and the project. And so here's a little bit more about those plans and, again, how we'll be using them. I think the other thing I'll just note, again, in addition to the fact that you can really get a benefit as an applicant from a strong community benefits plan, we will be operationalizing these plans for the projects that move forward, and we'll be continuing to monitor and check in on the progress across the life of the project. So this is not just a sort of one-time commitment that pops up in the application process. It's something that we're actually excited to see come to fruition across the life of all these projects. With that, I just want to flag in terms of resources that can continue to support you and your work at DOE. Within my office, the Office of Congressional and Intergovernmental Affairs, we have an amazing team of regional specialists who each cover a geographic portfolio. Our specialist for the Midwest, Rose Dottie, is not here today, but you can definitely reach out to her or me, and we will get you in touch with the right folks in DOE. There are also a couple of great resources that you can follow, including energy.gov/bill, B-I-L, which is our clearinghouse on all things related to the bipartisan infrastructure law, and it has a tracker that shows you every single DOE program and when it's launched, and will take you directly to the application for that particular program if it's available. So I would definitely encourage you to take some time, peruse those resources, and get connected because it's a really good information point. And then finally, I'll just share a little bit contact information in case anybody has follow-up. I know we'll have limited time to talk for the rest of today, but we want to emphasize that we at DOE are here to partner with you. We are looking forward to building those partnerships, and we know that without those partnerships, we cannot maximize the impact of these really historic investments, and we can't see the fullest version of this transition to a clean energy economy that we're all here today to work on. So we look forward to working with you. We are available to you, and we thank you for the opportunity to be here and share a little bit today. With that.
We have a couple of minutes, but do you want to take questions?
You can take one or two if you want.
So we have a couple minutes for questions. Unfortunately, the microphone has been misplaced, so if you have a question, please put it in the app, or else raise your hand, and we'll get a couple of questions answered.
Any questions? Yeah.
Do you think there is any danger with the divided Congress that the IRA funding may not be as generous as we all expect it to be?
I would say that I think we're certainly at a moment when we recognize that there's a lot of work, there's a lot of work to be done to continue building support for these programs, right? And we're really fortunate in that while there are certainly issues that we're focused on at DOE that are very political in this climate, there are also a lot of issues that we work on that have broad bipartisan support. And so I think we definitely have places where we'll be looking to be on defense and make sure that we're protecting these funding opportunities as well as other programs. And we think there's a really historic moment to just continue building the kind of support that many of you have already been working to build. So I would say it's definitely a possibility. There are definitely concerns. And I think we also think there are a lot of places to just continue to build common ground.
Hi. Okay, this thing is on. It's working. So my name is Evelyn Sellers. I'm a student at UW-Madison. I'm just up and coming, trying to make my way in this energy field and the field of policy. Thank you so much for everything you're doing at the federal level, by the way. It's really inspiring to see, that people really do care and people are really listening. So thank you. My question, kind of as a student and as a young professional, which is terrifying to say, what advice would you have for students, young adults who are looking to break into this field of energy advancement, clean energy policy, not just in terms of, career advice, but in terms of what kind of policy issues do you see on the horizon? What kind of opportunities are going to be up and coming?
Oh, it's a great question, and I really appreciate it. And just for what it's worth, I'll say, over the course of my career, I've learned that it can be intimidating to be a young professional, and it can also be a bit sobering to be a mid-career professional. And at some point, I'll report back on what it's like to be an older professional, I hope. I would say just a couple of things. I mean, one, I think in this field, like all others, networking is incredibly important, right? And just really working to build your networks, to engage with people, to understand what they're doing, what perspectives they bring. I think that is helpful both, for the moment you want to find, that you actually get to that moment of like, okay, finding a job. It's also really helpful to kind of start to understand where you fit in, right? And so for me, I think it took landing in a place where I was really working on policy issues to kind of understand that was the part of this work that I really loved and that I was drawn to. I think the other thing I'll just say really quickly in terms of areas to focus on, one of the things that's been a huge opportunity for me moving to DOE is to really look at some of the more cutting edge technologies that I think are out there, right? Working on policy in states, it's been an incredible opportunity to do a lot of work on solar and wind and efficiency, and those things are still so much, the bread and butter, but I think, we are going to see potentially advancements in nuclear technology. We're seeing a whole new hydrogen economy develop, right? We're seeing, I think, a new generation of thinking about, carbon capture and sequestration and those projects, and, really a different take on a carbon economy. And so I think really taking the opportunity to expose yourself to some of those new areas, as well as the things that have very much become, I think, the accepted kind of bricks and mortar part of a clean energy industry is a great thing to think about. Yeah. Thank you. And with that, I think my time is up, so I'll yield back to Sam. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to be with you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Please give Jennifer a big round of applause. Before I introduce our next speaker, I just want to invite everyone once again to come to the front. There's still a lot of open tables up here at the front of the room. Our final speaker today is Public Service Commissioner Chairperson Rebecca Valcq. Commissioner Valcq was appointed to the Public Service Commission on January 7th, 2019 by Governor Tony Evers, when she was also appointed as the Commission Chairperson. Before accepting her role at the state of Wisconsin, Chairperson Valcq was a partner at Quarles and Brady Law Firm in the Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Practice Group. Previous to that position, Chairperson Valcq was regulatory counsel for the Wisconsin Electric Power Company, where she advised management on all areas of regulatory law in multiple jurisdictions and compliance matters. As a member of the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners, Commissioner Valcq serves on the Water Committee and the Select Committee on Regulatory and Industry Diversity. She previously served on the advisory committee of the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, a regional transmission organization which administers the wholesale electricity market in all or parts of 11 U.S. states and the Canadian province of Manitoba. She also served on the board of directors of the Organization of MISO States. Commissioner Valcq earned her undergraduate degree from Drake University and her law degree from Marquette University. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chairperson Rebecca Valcq.
Thank you, Sam. To the student, apply to the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin. We have a lot of openings, LTE openings. We can work around your school schedule. And I'm not joking. Matt Sweeney is sitting right in front of you. He'll hand you his business card, and we will get rolling, because that's what we do at the PSC. Yes. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me. Listening to Jennifer, and going into my 5th year at the commission, I have to say I echo your sentiments as well in terms of the DOE's visibility over the last couple of years has been absolutely incredible. And Rose Dady is sending our commission information on a daily basis. And so the increased visibility of the Department of Energy is really refreshing. And so I just wanted to give kudos to Jennifer for being here, because it's important. And then, of course, thank you to Renew for organizing such an incredible event, as always. When I think back to 2018, 2019, the numbers were much smaller. And I think one of the speakers said it really eloquently earlier today when they mentioned that, isn't it so nice to be having these discussions and actually have the feeling and the confidence that real progress has been made and will continue to be made? And so it bears repeating, and I know we say it a lot, but I don't think that it can be overstated, that we are at a pivotal point in creating our clean energy future. And again, we've heard it multiple times, but we really, really are standing at a spot where we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to really move the needle in a meaningful way. For those of you who listened to Michelle Moore during the lunch address, she mentioned a colleague of her that had passed away that talked about courageous innovation. And I don't know that there's a better descriptor for the work that we do here in Wisconsin than courageous innovation. We were courageous enough to invent the hamburger, after all. So the recent achievements that we've seen in the state are many, and I'm going to touch on those in a little bit. But I just want to give you kind of a little bit of background. So I'm entering my 5th year, and I'm sort of feeling as though I'm getting my sea legs under me finally. And since being appointed as chairperson, I continue to be incredibly proud of the work that we do at the commission. We do innovate, and we do it courageously, but we do that while meeting our mission. And that mission is evident in the work that we do each and every day. What is our mission? Our mission is to ensure safe, reliable, affordable, and environmentally responsible utility services and equitable access to telecommunications and broadband services. My coworkers, many of whom are here today, will tell you that I am fond of pointing out that the work that we do at the Public Service Commission impacts the lives of Wisconsinites every single day. And I don't think that you can overstate the feeling of responsibility, but also the feeling of opportunity that comes along with that. So whether it's ensuring that clean provision of, or whether that's ensuring the provision of clean drinking water, reliable electricity, home heating, or access to high-speed broadband internet, the daily work that we do and the decisions that we make have a meaningful difference for all of our neighbors. And that's why, for me, my work carries with it a tremendous sense of responsibility, both professionally and personally. I'm a mom of 2 daughters, and while being a mom is by far the most important and tiring role I will ever have, I also understand the gravity and the urgency of my professional work to protect our environment, to create a sustainable energy future, and to create a clean, healthy state that all of our children deserve. It's a responsibility I take incredibly seriously, and it both ignites me and terrifies me. We are faced with mounting challenges: climate change, rising costs for families and businesses, labor shortages, crumbling infrastructure, increasingly divisive rhetoric, the weaponization of regulatory decisions through waves of costly and time-consuming litigation, critical resources that are stretched too thin. And all of these intersecting challenges have a disparate impact on people of color, people living in poverty, and the most vulnerable members of our communities. These are the challenges that are at the front of everyone's minds. They are at the front of my mind. But together, we have an exciting opportunity to deliver tangible solutions to address all of them. And we've heard all day today, there is no shortage of discussion about the myriad solutions that are in front of us and the myriad of funding opportunities that we have. But we can do this, I say this often as well. Yes, it's a once-in-a-generation opportunity. It's an incredible opportunity. We can either fail miserably or we can do it really well. And by the looks of the room here today and by the conversations that I've heard all throughout the day, there's no doubt that we will get there. But as a public servant and a fellow Wisconsinite, and most importantly for me as a parent, I know the urgency and the necessity of capturing the momentum to make Wisconsin a healthier and a cleaner state. My vision of success for the Public Service Commission, and more broadly, the state of Wisconsin, is defined by our ability to effectively create a roadmap to zero carbon, and to ensure that that roadmap is done reliably, affordably, and responsibly. We've also got to bridge the digital divide, and we have to center our actions at the PSC through a lens of equity. Because every single decision that we make at the agency impacts every single Wisconsin resident every day, that lens of equity is becoming increasingly more important. And I firmly believe that there is no better positioned agency to lead the charge than the Public Service Commission. Over 115 years ago, Wisconsin recognized a simple truth. Monopoly providers of public service cannot be allowed to unilaterally set prices and establish their terms of service. Given that simple truth, Wisconsin responded by creating an independent government agency, the PSC, to regulate utilities in the public interest. That was 1907. We were the first in the nation to create such an agency. Ultimately, every other state followed our lead. The task of responsibly regulating utilities has never been easy. Consider for just a moment what regulation has to accomplish. It needs to ensure the provision of utility service that is safe, economical, reliable, environmentally responsible, innovative, and priced fairly to all customers, all classes of customers, industrial, commercial, and residential. But while it has never been easy, responsible utility regulation is much more difficult today than it was when, fresh out of law school in the year 2000, I started practicing utility law. Over the intervening years, the industries that the Commission regulates and the world in which those industries have changed dramatically. Technology has changed, customer expectations have changed, environmental concerns have changed, and financial markets have changed. So, responsible, forward-looking utility regulation, which was always difficult, has become even more difficult. Difficult, but not impossible. If we at the Commission continue to be proactive, if we continue to listen with an open mind to all stakeholders, regardless of their stripes, if we continue to engage those stakeholders and participants in a robust, transparent exchange of information and ideas, and if our Commission staff continues to act as trusted experts in supporting commissioners while making well-informed decisions that help us to balance the public interest and the financial health of our utilities, we will get the job done. And I have no doubt about that. For those in the room who know me, you know I'm an extremely strong proponent of Wisconsin's regulatory model. The regulatory model has worked in Wisconsin for scores of decades to balance the interests of safety and reliability while keeping rates affordable. The regulatory model is working. It's working to bring about meaningful progress in our state's transition to zero carbon energy. And while I am all too aware of the urgency of our need to get to zero carbon, restructuring the regulatory framework is not the answer. There are those who say that we are moving too slowly and that lasting damage to our planet is being done and will not be able to be undone. There are those who say that we are moving too quickly in our transition, that we are jeopardizing reliability and affordability, that we are placing a disproportionate amount of the cost burden on the backs of those who can least afford it. They say that we're moving too fast, that our actions are going to result in a grid that is not as robust as it needs to be, and that it will be more prone to failure. So what's the solution? Well, the solution has been right in front of us since 1907. Independent regulators who weigh the evidence and make informed decisions in the public interest. And the progress that we've made over the last 4 years shows us that the regulatory model is working and that our clean energy goals are being achieved. In the beginning of his first term, Governor Evers issued Executive Order 38, which affirms that the state shares the goal of consumption of 100% zero carbon electricity by 2050. Since 2019, at the Commission, we have approved the construction or the acquisition of 23 large-scale solar generating plants, adding nearly 2,700 megawatts of zero-carbon generation to the state's electric system. There are currently over 1,300 megawatts of solar projects in the queue at the Commission. On third-party solar, we move the conversation forward, but there are limits to what we can do. We need solutions that are within the law. And I'm just going to urge everybody in this room that all politics are local. There's legislation being shopped that would make it harder for solar facilities to be built in the state of Wisconsin. We heard from the WEVI discussion about the challenges and obstacles associated with being able to build out a robust charging infrastructure because of the ambiguity of the statute that defines a public utility. We need solutions. We also opened up the interconnection rules and embarked on rulemaking to update those interconnection rules. They hadn't been looked at in nearly 20 years. This is going to help streamline DER connection to the grid and eliminate barriers. We opened up individual utility generation buyback tariffs. We opened a generic proceeding on EV dockets and required all investor-owned utilities to file EV tariffs with us. We've been leading statewide efforts to identify that roadmap to zero carbon. That included a series of in-person public workshops on performance-based regulation, which stakeholders have helped to identify as a key priority to help the transition to zero carbon. We shined a light on utility resource planning through the strategic energy assessment to better understand how decisions to retire existing power plants and construct new ones can effectively balance the goals of adequacy, reliability, affordability, and environmental responsibility. We also completed a multi-phase focus on energy planning process that will enhance the program's emphasis on equitable participation opportunities and improve program design and delivery. We awarded more than $17 million for 78 projects under our Energy Innovation Grant Program, and that grant program supports Wisconsinites' efforts to implement a wide variety of projects related to energy efficiency, renewable energy, energy storage, and energy planning. We also remained focused on ensuring that the clean energy transition is done safely, affordably, and reliably. And in doing so, the Commission made decisions that are saving Wisconsin utility customers over $28 million per year. We did all of that while issuing record numbers of final decisions. That's a lot of work. And I think that you will agree with me that the cooperation among federal, state, local, and tribal leaders, as well as industry professionals, labor, and other stakeholders, have created a very solid foundation for change. And it is one that we will continue to work from. When I accepted this appointment, there was a lot of frustration expressed about how quickly we could get things turned around at the PSC. And while I don't typically make it a point to point out all of these seemingly innocuous dockets, right? I mean, a lot of the work that we have done, the foundation building that we have done, is a little esoteric, but it's necessary. And it has always been my goal and my vision to ensure that we have an extremely solid foundation to protect us from the changing winds of the political environment in which we operate. We're going to continue to work on the energy burden. We're going to continue to increase awareness of not just energy assistance programs and opportunities, but to really become laser focused on breaking the cycle. And here's the cycle. We saw it this morning with one of the storytellers. We heard it from Michelle Moore, whose grandparents lived in a horribly inefficient home. And we see it played out across Wisconsin every single day. Families living in homes that are incredibly inefficient, which drives higher energy usage, which leads to higher bills, which leads to an inability to pay those bills, which leads to disconnection, which all work together to increase costs. But who does it increase costs for? If those uncollectible expenses are simply written off or are socialized across all classes of customers, where is the incentive to drive down the actual utility bill? So we have to be focused, and I was so happy that Michelle Moore mentioned this is not just about income. This is not an issue of, well, utility bills aren't being paid or the uncollectible amounts are becoming too high because of poverty. Yes, that's one of the issues. But at its core, it is about the housing stock. And the housing stock is a direct result of decisions that were made decades ago that continue to dog the people who live in those homes. So I'm viewing the advancement and the availability of federal funds to really, really help us when we look at breaking that cycle. Energy efficiency can and should continue to play a major role. I'll give another plug for All Politics Are Local. We've got to do something to flip the narrative on energy efficiency. If there's one thing that gets me more upset, other than the fact that my teenager refuses to keep her room clean, but what really gets me is when energy efficiency and focus on energy in Wisconsin is referred to as an energy tax. We can't allow that narrative to continue. We have got to flip the script, and we have to do it now, because energy efficiency has got to continue to play a pivotal role. And Wisconsin has been a leader and will continue to be a leader. We were named the nation's most cost-effective energy efficiency program administrator in the country. So we know what it is to be good stewards of dollars. But we cannot let that narrative continue, because energy efficiency has to be a part of this transition. So we've accomplished a lot, and I'm proud of everything that we've accomplished. I was telling somebody earlier today, I think the thing I'm the most proud of is the fact that our open meetings are now streamed on YouTube. I mean, yeah, in the beginning I laughed, and Matt Sweeney kept telling me to tell people to smash the whatever it's called. But it's important. It's important because the decisions that we make at those meetings have an impact. And everybody in the state who's impacted by those decisions, everybody has the right to understand why we decide the way we do. They have the right to listen what our justification is for our decisions as they're coming out. So if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, I would encourage you to do so. But the transformation that we want to see, which is a clean energy future, that's why we're here. It's going to require creative solutions. And know that the haste in which we need to do this is not lost on me. We need to move forward with ambition, but we also have to be realistic. We cannot go into these conversations thinking that the solution lies with breaking the model that has worked in Wisconsin since 1907. At the PSC, we will continue to think of innovative ways to meet our mission. We prioritize stakeholder and community engagement. I think for any of you who have been watching what we've been doing over the last at least 12 months, you have seen an increase in participation and intervention from groups who have never participated at the PSC. I would love, if we're sitting here next year, I would love to be able to tell you that we had 50 new parties intervene in our proceedings this year, because it matters. And the evidence and the information and the collaboration that is brought to the table by parties who have differing viewpoints is so critically important to building records that will lead to well-reasoned decisions. I challenge you all to think about how we can work together to inform and empower our neighbors and fellow Wisconsinites in the year ahead. We have the tools. We are well prepared as a state to be national leaders in the clean energy transformation. Now it's time to look at what we have in common with each other and work to make ambitious but realistic changes. The time is now to evolve our regulatory model, because our kids cannot wait. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for those very encouraging and motivating words, Chairperson Valcq. At one point while you were talking, I was thinking to myself, boy, I'd hate to follow that. And then more slowly than I'd like to admit, it dawned on me that I was that person. I'm happy to announce that we have reached the wrap-up portion of the summit today. We've all made it. Congratulations. I hope you've all enjoyed the programming today. Thank you so much for being here. I have a bunch of people I want to thank. First of all, I want to start off by thanking our board, thanking all the volunteers as well that helped just make the wheels run today. You all did such a great job. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks as well to the Monona Terrace staff here as well that has made the virtual part of this seamless, I am sure. We really appreciate your help as well. Certainly want to thank our sponsors again, Green Penny, especially our presenting sponsors, Green Penny Bank and Invenergy. And I also really, really want to thank my staff here. In fact, I would like them to come up on stage and receive a round of applause. Come on. I love how you all went up so orderly. It's amazing. This staff deserves a huge round of applause. Thank you so much. I do want to highlight 3 individuals especially, starting with Jim Bullion, our Government Affairs Director. For those of you that haven't heard, this sadly will be Jim's last summit as a Renew Wisconsin employee. He is going to be entering into retirement. Thank you so much, Jim, for everything you've done. Second person I want to thank is Michael Vickerman. Michael is also going to be entering into retirement, but thankfully only half stage because we all need him around, as we all know, quite a bit longer. So Michael, please wish Michael a happy half retirement. And finally, I want to thank my new Deputy Director and Communications Director, Jody Jean Amble, who planned this day to a T. I am not joking when I say literally all I had to do was show up today. So thank you so much, Jody. All the staff, though, you all deserve a huge round of applause. I've said this to many people, but this is definitely the biggest audience that I'll get to say it to. Everyone on this staff I both like working with and respect. I have never had that type of workplace in any workplace that I've been in. You all are great, and you all are going to make this transition so amazing. And so I just really want to say I thank you, all of you. And also, before I forget, I also want to thank Heather Allen and Jessica Niekratz for acting as interim directors as well during this transition period. It was quite the wild ride, but we're really excited for all the help that we received from everyone. So with that, I'm going to wrap up because it's time for the social hour and the happy hour, and I don't want to, impose on that time at all. We're going to have beverages and other refreshments out here, outside the doors here to my left. Drink tickets will be with your name tag, so I hope you didn't discard that yet. Otherwise, there's going to be some sad folks out there. Hopefully, you can all stay and socialize and network some more. We really are looking forward to the continued conversation. And with that, I will officially close our 12th Annual Renewable Energy Summit. Please join me in a final round of applause for all of our presenters today, and I wish you all the best and safe travels back to your homes.